Hi, everybody. Yes, so as the introduction says, I do a lot of different stuff, and I've not been in the Fuck Up Nights before, so I'm not really that sure if what I will talk about is relevant. So I just thought I will talk about something which has affected me quite a lot and which has been hard in some ways. And so I do a lot of different ventures, and I'm the entrepreneur. I start stuff. So I start stuff, and then I make sure that they can continue to grow and continue to thrive. So that's what I'm doing. The red line. When I did the presentation, I was thinking in Swedish, so some of the pictures makes more sense, I think, if you're Swedish. Unfortunately, the red line or like the red thread in whatever I do is people. So everything I do has involved different people. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about employees and challenges with employees. And during my years, I've had, so far, I've had 3 employees which have been bad hires. So it's people I hired, which I, in retrospect, realize weren't the best people to hire. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit and challenges with that. If I look at the people, like, okay, why are there bad hires? What went wrong? The problem has been that, like whenever you start hiring somebody, you start with an interview. So you meet them, or of course you start with some form of CV or something like that. Then you have an interview, you meet them, you most likely meet them a couple of times because, especially if you're early and your first employees, it's very important that you get it right. So you don't want to just meet somebody once and then ignore it. Wait, seeing if I can manage to get this better up. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, it's mostly for the camera, I think. So it's not for you guys. I don't think you hear me any better, unfortunately. So the problem is, like, you have interviews with a person, and you try to ask good questions, and then you try to, like, think, okay, is this person better than the other persons I've interviewed? And at the same time, often when you're early in your venture, you're quite stressed. So it's like you want to hire somebody, but it's not like, I can take like a 6 months process and then I can find the right person. Quite often you needed this person 6 months ago, quite all the time. So it's like you want to be quite efficient in the hiring process. And that's, of course, very challenging, especially if you most likely haven't hired for that position before. So you don't really know what you actually want, what you actually ask for and stuff like that. So of course, there's a lot of things to do wrong. And one of the in all the 3 cases which went wrong for me, something which they all had in common was that they weren't bad, but they weren't good enough. And that was very hard to judge, like on the first appearances, or like, okay, you have met them a couple of times. So these were people which, like, on the paper, they had everything that they needed to have. And when you met them, you were like, nice person, this could work. But in the end, it wasn't good enough. So that was one of the big problems. And if you work for me, I have a quite open environment, and I'm very much this, like, I give a lot of freedom, and I expect a lot of responsibility from everybody who works for me. And the problem which arises is that if people aren't good enough, but you expect them to be good, it puts a lot of strain on them. So a problem which emerges is that they want to please you. They want to do what you expect them to do, but they maybe can't because they're not good enough at it, or they have never done this before and they don't really know how to do it, and they are maybe afraid of asking. So that was also one of the big problems, is that I had employees which told me stuff was good, but it wasn't. And they didn't really tell me the entire picture. And it was really problematic because, for example, one of my employees, he was very honest and like, oh, sorry, I like we could have a meeting, like we had a weekly meeting. So we had a weekly meeting, and I was like, okay, how's the process? How's it going? Has there been anything unexpected showing up and stuff like that? He could be at the meeting and saying like, unfortunately it's taking longer than expected. I didn't plan to run into these troubles, so it will first be ready in like 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And if you sit at a meeting and somebody tells you that, sorry, it didn't really work as I wanted to, but I'm trying to fix it, then you actually, or that was my expectations, expect that person to be honest in every way. But the problem was that person wasn't honest in all the other fields. So I got the feeling of I have a person who is honest because he actually dares to say that he's made mistakes, but he didn't dare to tell all the mistakes. And that was that was for me very tough as well, just because I want to trust people. My entire life works on that I need to trust people, because if I want to control people, my life wouldn't work. So I need to trust people, and not being able to trust somebody fully, that was really tough blow in that sense. Okay, so now I talked a little bit about problems and like what kind of characteristics. And something I learned from those characteristics is that if something is really important, you always need to ask about those details, even if you don't really want to, or even if you don't really like. If to be concrete, so in this case, what he was working on should have been done. Like in this case, I think it should have been done in September. Okay, it was a project. He was responsible for a project. Should have been done in September, and it was a 3-month project, so a relatively long project in that sense. And in July, we had a meeting like, okay, good, now it's a little bit more than 1 month left, how's it going? And the response was, it's not going that well, but it's going okay, but we should be done, maybe it will be a couple of weeks late, worst case scenario. It wasn't that bad, because it could have been 1 or 2 months late. It wouldn't have been a problem. So it wasn't, well, great, good, then we continue. And then September comes, and September, still not going good enough. It might be a month late. And then October, we're still not really there. Might be a month late. And then suddenly it was like December, and like, okay, fuck, like now it's 3 months over schedule. What has happened? Why isn't this finished? And when I look at it like in retro perspective, I was always asking a little bit too soft questions. Like I wanted to know, okay, how is it going? When will it be done? But I didn't ask the details. I didn't ask like, okay, but at this time in the project plan, we should have been here. Why are we not at this specific point? And when will we reach the specific point? Like I was always asking like, when will we be done? I should have been asking more details in that sense. So that was like one of the lessons I learned from that as well. So if it's important, ask about the important details. Don't ask about every detail, because that's never going to work. You won't have time. But ask about important details, so that you actually know there is a progress in one way. And also the important details are the ones which actually need to work. So try to get that right. And of course, knowing which one are the important details is always very easy, of course. Okay, but it's also about. So the problem is that once you have identified that, okay, I have a person here who does the work at an okay level, but not good enough. It just doesn't work with the rest of the team, slower than everybody else, or the progress just isn't good enough. Then the challenge is, of course, getting rid of that person in one way or another. In all of my 3 cases, I never fired anybody. So it's also, I'm a little bit too nice, so I would have a hard time actually firing somebody. So in all of my cases, it resolved itself in one way. The person quit in one way or another. And that's mostly because I put a lot of trust in people, so I think they also felt that they didn't really fit into the organization. They felt that I was disappointed at them, and that never makes anybody really happy. So I think from that perspective, they always felt like that they should move on in one way or another. The problem with this approach works, and problem is it takes a long time. So it might take you might have a person for 7 months or 1 year or even longer on your payroll and working for you, and actually not being bad, just not moving fast enough forward. So that was that's also tough. I don't know. I still don't know if I would. I've gotten better at hiring people, so I don't know if I still would fire people. I'm very bad at firing people, I think. How does this affect you? The main problem for me was that I got very disappointed in myself by this. That it somehow affected my self-esteem. Like I was quite confident, and I was. For me, it was very easy to. I want to trust people, and not being able to trust people really hurt my self-esteem. I really realized that afterwards, and especially that. It's like I needed to find ways to, make to make sure people are good enough, and I didn't really know which method should I use, like what kind of metrics should I apply, and I'm always very afraid of bureaucracy, so I don't want to do like you should have reports this and this or stuff like that. I want to be a very flexible organization, because that's how everything is built up, and it's hard to put rules, or I don't want to put rules into it because the rules will emerge by themselves later anyway, and I'm afraid of putting up too many rules. So for me it was quite hard on my self-esteem. Now it's better. After a while you forget, and then you get ignorant again, and then you continue. And another problem with it was that for me, before this happened, I had like an illusion of that it was easy for me to get to know people. That I have easy to identify people, what they're good at and what they're not good at. But after these instances, it's like I'm actually not that good, or not as good as I thought I was or would like to be. So it hurt my own, it's in the self-esteem way also. Like I'm more careful now. I don't really like to be careful. It's better to move quickly and break stuff. So lessons learned. I want to finish with 2 slides. Lessons learned. One lesson learned, which is tied to thinking I was good at hiring people, is you should always take references. So there was like one of the first employees, which wasn't very good, was a big mistake I made there. That I did actually not check the reference. On the paper, everything was fine. The person seemed fine in person, so I never really bothered to check. And I knew the person a little bit since before also. So it was like, I know this guy is great, and this guy should know what he's supposed to do because he has all the qualifications. Anyway, I should have checked the references. So that was the first really hard lesson. And always when you check the references, ask really tough questions. Like, when is this person at his worst? What kind of situations does this person not work in? How is this person when the person is stressed? That's the questions you want to ask, because you want to know the answers to those kind of things in order to actually make sure, okay, this person is good enough, or this person works in my environment. And this second lesson is that you should have people on, in Swedish you call it provanställning. What's that in English? Anybody? Trial base, yeah. And I've come to realize that at the beginning I had like 3 months for that, and I realized after a while that's actually not good enough. So now it's actually 4 months, because I realized that it takes a problem is with people. Some people are slow learners. And it's okay to be a slow learner as long as you have a job or a task which you can excel at later. Then it's okay to be a slow learner. But it's hard to judge a slow learner from somebody who will never learn. And that takes roughly 1 to 2 months to actually figure out, is this person going to work in the long run or not? And then you need roughly 1 month to actually fire or not, or to at least not continue having them on board. So you need actually 4 months in total in order to actually make sure that this person does work or doesn't work. And then my rules of thumb are always like, as soon as you have somebody, you have an employee and you go like, this person, that's nice, this person could work, then it's the wrong person. It has to be, this is great. This person is marvelous. Then it's the right person. Everything else, it's the wrong person. That's also my lesson from it. So it's the same. Both when you hire them, you have to feel, this is great. And after 2 months, you have to feel like, shit, this is the best decision I've ever made. If it isn't, cancel it, find a new one. Good. That was me.